I don't think there's a case for them. Because one, what are you disputing? Are you disputing the figures? Are you disputing the win? Are you disputing the process? And IBC has been very clear on its operations. It has been the open and the most transparent election we have ever had in this country. So even if they go to the Supreme Court, what are the recourse they are seeking? What are the benefits, or what are the issues they are trying to put before the court for the court to determine for them? There's nothing. If they are talking about, because the reason for going to the Supreme Court is to dispute the results.
But you are speaking as a Kenya Kwanza supporter.
No, I'm not speaking. No, I'm honestly, no, I'm looking at it objectively at this moment. I'm looking at it objectively because one, if they go to the Supreme Court, what will the court, based on the previous rulings that have happened in 2017, the IBC was just challenged. Can you prove how you got or you arrived to these particular figures? And IBC then they had a challenge of the server. But this time round, the server is open to everyone. Even Obama in the United States can access it. So what are the basis for their appeal? On the contrary, if you look at the happenings around IBC, you realize that their side kind of misbehaved during the whole process, especially at Bomas. We could see them throwing chairs and all that, causing chaos at the tallying center. If there are people who are supposed to be charged, actually, are the Azimio guys, because they have really caused a lot of havoc at the tallying center. No, that is, we saw it, we witnessed, all Kenyans witnessed.
What are you saying?
We saw the IBC official assaulted on the broad daylight.
Non-partisan. I mean, really, this is a Kenya Kwanza position.
I mean, Wakili, on a serious note, I mean, besides the sideshows and everything that we saw at Bomas yesterday, looking at the merits or the demerits of the case, critically looking at what happened yesterday. So we have 4 commissioners who have distanced themselves from the results and saying that they're not, saying that they're opaque in nature. Can these 4 be called as witnesses if indeed this case goes to the Supreme Court? Because they said they promised a detailed statement later. So that detailed statement and said there are all these judicial avenues to going to court and whatnot and calling for peace. Can they be called as witnesses?
I don't think, you can provide more insight into that, but it's my understanding that they would swear affidavits. I don't know whether the Supreme Court actually hears from witnesses.
Exactly. What will happen is, the beauty about that case will be Kenyans will know the truth. Because there's something we don't know.
Correct. That is what you said. That.
You get me? There's something we don't know. And them going to court, to the Supreme Court, will put everything bare.
Correct.
And Kenyans will understand that this election was free, fair, and verifiable. That is the most important bit. Because these 4 commissioners, there's nowhere, and as I in my opening remarks, I say there's nowhere in law that they are supposed to vote on how to declare the president-elect. There's nowhere.
How does the IEBC, my question also related to that, is usually we see IEBC as a party. Right? So they take a position as IEBC.
Yes.
So how does that work in this instance where you have 4 commissioners? It's a fractured commission.
My question is this. If they say they don't agree with the presidential results, do they still not agree with all these other elective positions that happened? That is very critical.
I think the tricky thing here is we have there's no jurisprudence over this. We have no precedent where you know, some commissioners distance themselves just before the result is read. So that's one thing. We can sit here and speculate, but there's no jurisprudence governing that as we speak. And of course there wouldn't be, because this is the 3rd cycle with the Supreme Court in place after the new constitution of 2010. But I also want to just put it out there that we may or may not agree that there is a case. But if they believe there is a case, just because a server is open, does not mean, I mean, we've been discussing these issues here, where there were questions about tampering of these documents in the server. The IEBC themselves, I think, admitted to over 200 attempts to hack into the system. And of course, there were all these allegations, and we will call them allegations because we don't, you know, we've not been able to sit and verify. So these are allegations. That some of these, the veracity of some of these forms, and let's call them what Prof called them, images, of these forms cannot be verified. There were questions about someone hacking the server, removing the original Forms 34A and replacing them with others that had so-called, quote-unquote, cooked figures. So just because a server is open, and the question of it not being open in 2017 does not necessarily mean that there is no case. We don't know what Azimio's side will come out and say, whether they will say, we concede, let's move on, or we are going to the Supreme Court because we have evidence. We don't know what evidence they have. We want to assume at this point that if they feel they have a case, then they have the evidence that they're going to present, because of course no one is going to waste the time of the Supreme Court. And let me say this, in as much as we all want this thing to be over and move on, there is space in the law and there's jurisprudence to address the fact that if someone feels aggrieved, instead of going to the streets and raising chaos and bringing the economy to a standstill, you go to the Supreme Court. That's why the Supreme Court was placed there. So if they feel they have a case, it is their constitutional right to go to the Supreme Court with the evidence that they may have to present their case. So I think it would be unfair for us to sit here and speculate and say there is no case. We don't know what evidence they have. We don't know what allegations they're going to make. And we have these 4 commissioners, and this has never happened. We have these 4 commissioners who are saying we have distanced ourselves because of the opaque nature of whatever that means. You know, the way they said it was reckless, yes. The moment at which they said it was reckless, yes. Do we dispel that they may have something to say? With all due fairness and to be very objective, no. So let the evidence be presented, then be taken to court. If Azimio, Alliance feels they can do that, they have the constitutional right to do that.
Just a quick rejoinder there, that actually, and on this one, I totally dissociate myself with Newton's comments on this particular matter, and declare that he's a Kenya Kwanza supporter. But moving forward swiftly, you see, we actually, Azimio has been there right from the start, from actually even before the voting and so on, and they've been monitoring this process, and they were there always, in the polling stations, in the tallying and so on. As critics, armchair critics, which is our job, so nobody should actually think that is any lesser. I do the job that I was asked to do. If you're a politician, you do your job. But as armchair critics, we are saying that it is impossible for us to know. These 4 commissioners have been there all along, with IBC, seeing things there. We cannot sit here and determine that what they saw, which we don't know, is wrong or not there. Number 3, we must look at these institutions beyond IBC. The management of elections has all these institutions, including the Supreme Court. And the courts exist. Kenyans have this sort of thinking that you only go to court to win. Not really. And Wakili can actually tell you, if you feel aggrieved, if you feel that some things are unclear in law and so on, you can actually go to court, to actually get interpretation. If in the wisdom of Azimio, that actually has very many senior lawyers, including the party's former running mate and even the spokesperson, professors of law. If they think that they have an issue that can only be solved in Supreme Court, so be it. That's why the court exists, as Dr. Kara has certainly said. And I think it would be speculative and irresponsible for us to say that, look, they shouldn't go because we were watching, from 34 is being loaded. I think that doesn't make sense. If they feel aggrieved, they should go. And again, agree with Newton on this particular one, that actually the courts will actually lay bare that process will lay bare what happened.
Exactly.
And for me, it's not a bad thing. Courts are not bad. That's why we have them. This part of our democracy, and these are part of our processes. You can imagine a point where no Kenyan will imagine going to the streets. Of course, fortunately, they're not on the streets because they trust that you have adequate institutions to deal with both elections and grievances that might actually come from there.
Yes.